This is the Vision with Execution show. My name is Adam Torkelson. I've got an amazing guest today, David McKee. He's a coach and he uses psychology and some other really interesting takes on coaching that I've never heard before. I've interviewed several coaches on the show. So we're going to get into some of that. David, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, David, number one question, where are you calling from today?
Sir, I'm in New York City, right in Midtown Manhattan.
Perfect. So, do you find that working with clients who are local to you is optimal, or has it not seemed to matter so much?
So pre-COVID, it was optimal. Uh, During COVID and after COVID, it was a weird kind of sensation that I would say because COVID just affected so many people negatively. And I've openly said it was the best thing for my business because a lot of musicians, that's where I started a lot of my consulting work was with an accounting group as well as a music group. And on the music side is there was this obsession pre-COVID of you had to do everything in a studio. And some people still have that mindset, but music shifted during COVID that you were able to record anywhere you wanted to. So I usually was stuck to local clients for years on my music business. And as soon as COVID happened, I've got clients now in Europe, New Zealand, all over the world. And it's the coolest thing because they speak English and we just have to coordinate the times. That's the biggest issue we have to get over.
So, why did you start in the music industry?
Sure. My mom taught me music growing up. She passed away 11 years ago, and I went through a really tough transition of I avoided music for a lot of my life after that because I thought it would be too painful of a reminder. And I dug into that through with therapy and other issues, and then I kind of going through what I could do and fix it instead of just complain or whine about a problem. I really looked into it, and she had said, "You're miserable. Just try some music. Try to see what it does if it makes you feel any better." And the coolest thing is I feel closer to my mom than ever. I know she's not here, but it's just one of those things that it brings back so much of that. So music is my passion side of everything. I make my money on the business end of things more often, but yeah, it's music has just always been a love, and I do it to try to help struggling or underappreciated artists.
And what sort of music are you into? And just FYI, I have a deep background in music myself,
Nice.
more performing arts, I would say,
Okay.
than anything. I was in a cappella choir in university,
Okay.
and I play a couple of different instruments. Both of my kids were I forced them to play and learn piano, and the my son's taking voice lessons right now. He's a senior in high school,
That's
but
amazing.
my wife doesn't have a musical talent in her body, but she tries her best. And
Hmm.
uh, the only time we ever sing as a family is when we're in church on Sundays.
I love it.
Outside of that, I spend a lot of time singing in the bathroom and on walks with my dog. Anyway, my question initially was, what sort of music are you into? Are you and do
Sure.
you compose music as well?
Yeah, yeah. So I compose, I saw him right, and then I also sometimes just project manage of just I get different personalities in a room and kind of coordinate to make sure that the end product happens for a label or a company or whatever it is. But yeah, I love writing pop music is what I'm good at. I don't write much crazy into the jazz synth. I use chord progressions, really get into that end of everything. And yeah, I was able to kind of find a pattern or a product of what I was doing and be able to replicate it constantly. And it really worked. It works across genres. Mine, I would say, is more pop, but then I started working in country, and country became very pop over the last 5 to 7 years. So it's been a really easy transition of a lot of these people are open to wanting to have a pop song because that's more likely to go viral. So I've really leaned into that I'll work with anyone of any genre and lean into that end of we can write some pop music that has a really good chance of really sticking with a lot of people.
Who's one of the more famous people that I may have heard of that you've worked with?
Ooh, sure. I can't. I'm not able to say over over the air. I apologize on some of it, but I can highlight one of my indie artists. Is Sevi. Is his name Sevii? He has two songs out that I helped. I'm a co-writer on Onwards and Found You.
Okay, I've never heard of him, but is is there an artist that you've worked with that maybe my 18-year-old son might have heard? He's a big rap enthusiast,
Okay.
and he went to a DJO
Hmm.
concert recently,
Oh,
and he likes Metallica. So he's all over the
wow.
board.
All right. So I can tell you, I've worked on projects with labels, and the artists that are under those labels, you can kind of see at that end. It's Atlantic Records, as well as Universal, two of the bigger labels there. I work as a consultant, and I just full disclosure on it is the psychology side, because I go into that some of that with some of these, as I can't share names.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
which is totally fine. I'm not trying to put you on the spot or
No, no
anything.
worries, no worries.
Yeah, I just like uh I like to find out relevant things with all my guests that might connect to my kids. So
Yeah.
I'm
So
a
off the
big
record, I don't mind sharing it. I just can't air it. So I didn't know if this was that. I could walk through with you and tell you who they are. But yeah,
yeah, tell
it's
me later.
okay.
I don't want to put it in this recording,
You
but
got it.
yeah, I would love to. And the reason I do that is
Yeah.
because I I part of me really wants to look cool to my kids,
Okay.
but also I enjoy expanding their base of what's possible in life,
I love that.
and that's always done through new people that you meet.
Yeah.
And that's why I started a podcast, cuz meeting new people, it's really easy to have cool new people on my show every single time.
Hmm.
And I typically learn at least one or two new things that I never knew before. So it's a good thing for me, and I always try and share one or two things with my kids. And I'm incredibly focused on my kids' welfare and development.
I love
It
that.
is the why for everything that I do. I was homeschooled growing up.
Hmm.
Um, I was left to my own devices, which there's pros and cons to that approach. The pro that I look back at is since I was able to self teach myself just about everything I had to learn to pass tests, I became really good at studying and taking tests. And
Mm.
by the time I got to university, I didn't buy a single book ever,
See.
and had a full ride scholarship on academics. And it was from the things that I had to learn in homeschool.
Yeah.
And my mom was our teacher. There's 8 siblings in my family.
Okay.
We were all homeschooled.
Big family. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's sort of common in the LDS Mormon culture to have a lot of kids,
Sure.
which is where I'm
Absolutely.
from.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
But not so common to have homeschool. So we were sort of at the forefront of the homeschool revolution, I guess you could say, in public school.
Sure.
These days, it's awesome. They've got so much structure and community and support around it. We didn't have any of that. But I look back at it as a good growth opportunity. There were some major drawbacks, but I tend to focus on what I gained from that.
Oh, I like it.
But one of the other benefits of being homeschooled is that I can see what my own kids are learning in the public school system, and
Yeah.
there are pros and cons to that approach too. And
Absolutely.
so I try and supplement their public education with my own version of a hybrid of like homeschool and things that I think are cool and interesting.
Absolutely. Well, you just kind of illustrated that you were able to kind of figure that out for yourself. And I think it's the coolest gift of us as people, that we get to connect with others and pass on these legacies, whether it's to the people we communicate with every day, or if it's our family, which is even a deeper meaning. So it's so cool to see. Obviously, I can just tell of how you talk about them. You light up talking about your family. You could just tell you guys have a lot of beautiful connections from just how you present yourself.
Uh, well, that's cool. Um, Now, everybody I have on my show, I really like to ask them 2 questions.
So,
So for you, David, question number one is, what is your vision for 2025?
so my vision for 2025, and it's something that has started a couple months ago, and I'm really trying to see it through. I started it at the beginning of the year and really digging into it, is where do I want to be in 10 years? And am I making progress towards that goal today?
So in 2025, what's that going to look like? If you've got a 10-year plan, how is
Mhm.
year one going to play out for you?
So I do an honest accounting every day. I journal at the end of every night. And in that journal entry, I ask myself the question. I physically write out the question and then answer it. What did I do to get to where I want to be in 10 years today? Did I take steps towards that or did I take steps away from that? And what it does is on a daily basis is we're human. We're always going to have something where we have a soda and or whatever it is. If you're eating healthy, you have a soda and it's just like, oh, well, it was only one. And I look at it as the honest of, no, if that's something I don't want to keep doing or going across, acknowledge it and like just say, okay, this happened. We can't redo the past, but we can fix it for the future. So find ways of if you did have a slip up or anything along that line, openly acknowledge it, but you're doing it at the end of every day. So you're going to catch yourself pretty quickly if you're doing this consistently.
And why journaling?
It's a active way. I know not everyone loves the act of journaling of writing out. I do that, but I used to not like it either. I also sometimes, when I don't feel like writing, I'll just do a voice note. But it's some type of active diary for me that I say it really shows your reality. And I can give a good example. I had a really bad breakup like 8, 9 years ago. And after that breakup, I was devastated. And I told my therapist at the time that I was like, I'm miserable all the time. I'm so sad. I don't know what to do. And she got back to me and she's like, start journaling. And I came back a month after that and she told me journal every day. And I did. So I followed through and went through it. And then when she ended up asking after that first month, hey, how sad were you? And I still said the same thing all the time. She's like, go through your journal every day. How many times are there sad things mentioned in those journals? It was 3 days. three
Hmm.
days out of 30. But I made myself our mind is so strong and our thoughts are the strongest thing, in my opinion, in the world of thoughts can create something that's just so beautiful we can't even comprehend it. And so if you are actively thinking towards the good and focusing on the good, you're going to find the good. If you are focusing on the bad, harping on the bad, in my opinion, with psychology and the way the brain works with neuroscience and neuroplasticity, you're going to find the bad. So it's very much if you set yourself up and you put yourself in a good environment, you have a better chance to succeed.
So by journaling, it sounds like what you're doing is using that positive psychology uh, exercise
Yeah.
to remind yourself, I suppose, that one, you actually did something to
Hmm.
move towards your goal, and two, it it's sort of like an accountability every single day, and that's a principle of success that
Agreed.
all the coaches I've ever talked to, they all have elements of how they do their coaching, and they some of them have frameworks that all their trainees are going through and some of them don't,
Hmm.
but all of them have an accountability aspect and all of them have writing in some form or another, whether it's journaling or just having it written down always in front of you somewhere on
Yeah.
your phone or on your desk, but just constantly being reminded
Hmm.
of the things you're going towards tends to move you towards those things.
Yeah. And seeing it, reading it back is a really powerful thing. Not every day. Don't read it back right away. Is like one of those get your thoughts out, do your thing, and then move on. But at the end of every week, like every Sunday, I try to take an hour and I read through what I went through and I try to remember it. And I really try to actively visualize like what were the happiness, what was the good points, what were the bad points. And instead of what I started doing is doing that towards the past to fix myself for the future, where in the past I used to obsess about what could happen in the future and really like essentially overthink myself into a mindset of I would get stressed out. So I found that this is a way of kind of going the opposite way, and it's an easier approach and really does tend to help a lot of people.
Well, that's awesome. So I think you probably answered the other half of my question that I typically ask people, which is how are you going to execute on your vision?
Yeah,
And it sounds like journaling is definitely a big part of that.
absolutely.
How do you feel about the concept of who, not how? Have you ever heard that before?
No, not in that term. What could you explain? I just want to make sure I'm not going to be going off on something that I'm just on the wrong idea.
No worries. So Dan Sullivan wrote a book called Who, Not How,
Okay.
and I read it for the first time last year. I don't know when it actually came out, but it's it's helped me and a lot of people I know really reframe how we accomplish things because we by ourselves can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But if we only rely on ourselves to get things done, we're very we're limiting our potential.
Hmm.
So with your goals and the things that you want to progress towards, are you involving other people in that process? And if so,
Absolutely.
who would that be for you? And how does that work?
Yeah, so I've got myself a coach. I'm one of these people that if I feel like if you're in a senior level business role, or if you're an entrepreneur, or any type of business owner, you should have some type of coach who's keeping you in line with everything. Because it's like anything, is you could obsess about something that's not really important, or you can obsess about the stuff that is important. And so many times I compare it, if you are a CEO and running your business and you're in your business, you're like, say you're a doctor who owns 10 practices, and but they're actually working in one of the locations every day.
Yep.
It's hard to scale your business when you're working in, you can't really work on your business if you're working in your business. And I use the whole gym effect, is if you start a workout routine and you haven't for a period of time, like you got hurt and you're coming back and all right, I'm getting back to the gym. um, After one workout, are you going to notice any difference in your body?
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of CEOs and my clients, I'll kind of go through. I'm like, you need someone who's going to tell you the truth, wants the best for you, but it's going to give you the hard truth sometimes. Sometimes it's stuff you don't want to hear. And if you don't have that, it's really hard, because we want to believe what we want to believe, but we need people to keep us grounded and know that we're staying in our lane and being authentic to ourselves.
Yeah. And I think you just described the basic role of a coach really, really well. And I've had people on my show who have mentioned that there's also consultants and mentors that can also play a role in that whole dynamic of holding us accountable. Um, so I've had, I currently have mentors, multiple mentors.
Okay.
I hire consultants occasionally,
Hmm.
but none of them for like a holistic approach to how can I be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And the people I've had on my show, one of them, I'm I'm nearly at the point where I'm going to hire him to be my coach.
Okay.
But I've actually been interviewing, not on the show, but
Hmm.
just people that I'm connected to and getting suggestions for executive coaches. So I've been interviewing those people off the show and finding out what they charge,
Hmm.
how they structure things, and that's been really helpful to learn what kind of coaching I would want personally because even though there are a ton of different kinds of coaches, there's a
Hmm.
lot of coaches available.
Yep.
Every person has the personality for a fairly niche type of coach, I've found.
Hmm. Agreed.
So even if there's 100,000 coaches in the world and there's
Hmm.
200,000 executives, there's still probably a lot of room for a lot of very tight connection to a specific type of coach. And
Absolutely.
I would, the only experience I've ever had with that in any business sense is I've had 6 different CPAs in the last 10 years. And it's not because I didn't connect with them,
Hmm.
it's because I had expectations that they weren't meeting. And so I had no compunction about going and finding a new one
Okay.
until I found a CPA that does meet my expectations very
Yeah.
well.
Hmm.
And I refer all my friends to this CPA now.
I love that.
So I feel like that's similar in how people should go about finding a coach.
Yeah, it's so there was this really cool test in Switzerland that was done over the past, I think, decade, and it was called a Spain test, Spane. And essentially, what it did is it was a personality test that was so precise it could tell the difference between frustration and anger, which is usually very similar. It's like you're in a similar set, but if you're angry and if you're frustrated, you probably won't say a really awful thing. If you're angry, you're in that realm where you might say something awful and just if it's coming out. And but the powerful thing that came from that test was a lot of people always have said love is the most powerful emotion, just because we've all felt that. We've felt that infatuation when we love someone and they love us back. Um, but what was the strongest actual thing was authenticity. So it was wild. And it was like 40,000 times stronger than what love is, the way that it resonated on this test for people. And what I took out of that is you can't really be in love until you love yourself. You've got to love yourself. And then you know someone who is going to be your partner is a good match for you based off that expectation you have for yourself. Whereas when I was younger, I grew up in an abusive and really broken home growing up. And I didn't know what a healthy relationship was. And I had these sometimes whether it was I would get insecure or have whatever, a lot of it was my inner child that until I worked that out, that I realized, hey, like I that's not good for anybody. Putting that stress, no one likes putting someone's stress on somebody else. You never actively want to do that. So it's just one of those things. If you can really dig in and do the work, you can help yourself immensely. And then the gates just open up to what you can do with your life, with your career, with your love life, with your personal life on down.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about self-love and if taking care of my needs first so that I can then take care of other people's needs. And it started a lot with, at least for me, understanding my strengths and weaknesses.
Mm,
Really spending the time to understand myself and all the things that make up who I am. And then I was able to come at it from a perspective of I love all the things about myself,
mhm.
the good and the bad. And I'm working on turning those negative things into positives.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why anyone would want to have a coach, I think.
Yeah.
But if I were to give anyone advice about how do you love yourself,
Mhm.
it's first understanding yourself
Yeah.
to some degree.
Hmm.
And it takes an honest assessment to be able to do that,
Yeah.
that not everybody's ready to do.
Hmm.
And I really kind of I was forced into doing that because I was hiding an addiction from my family for a
Oh.
long time, and my wife found out about it and confronted me about it,
Mhm.
and she gave me a choice: either get help or we're getting divorced. And my love and my desire to be with my family has never diminished ever,
Mhm.
but I was making really stupid choices at the same time.
Mhm.
So it was important for me to look at my motivations for everything I was doing, the negative things that were holding me back, as well as the positive things. And that's what helped me understand personally how to love myself
Mm.
and therefore give me the power to use that loving motivation to do more things in the world that I feel like are my calling to live up to my full potential.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. And yeah, if I could throw a question at you, I know that's going a little bit opposite of what we usually do here, but if you could tell your younger self when you were in that state and prior of whatever led to that, of whatever you went through or had to endure, if you were to talk to that version of yourself to give him motivation or whatever, what would you say to try to fix it to show him how much better it can be?
I've thought about that a lot. I've been
Mm.
asked that question by multiple therapists and people. It's it's funny that it's a common question,
Hmm.
and I think it's one everybody should really think about. So for
Yeah.
me, it was I am worth the trouble of trying to become my best version of myself. Number one, my value is incredibly high. And number two, people are going to love me even if I have these weaknesses that
Mhm.
seem like they should make me like the worst person on earth. That's how
Yeah.
I felt like people would perceive me if they found out I was doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's how I would answer that.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful. You obviously you can tell you've been through something, and coming from someone who's been through stuff themselves, when you come out the other side, it's the coolest thing. Of I had some very, very lows that I hate to even mention, but it's realistic and it is what
Yeah,
happened. And it
it's
was just one of
authentic.
those, it took me hitting that low to realize this, and I try to tell this within anybody. We've all read books or we've watched movies since we were kids, and you always talk about people's arcs or stories or their where the character goes. And I've really dug in as what's your character's story? And if you are at a low right now, is that where you want it to end? Or is this just that part, three chapters until the end where you see how great everything gets because you learned a valuable lesson? We need failure. We've jumped into a society that is so about the now with social media, and like something that was news 45 minutes ago could be old news 45 minutes later. And it's just because we're inundated with all these things. So the attention span is slow. If you can really learn to extend that a little bit more, we see how much we can really put into ourselves and what we can get out when we find that self-love.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. So before we wrap up, time
Mhm.
has flown by.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's one thing that I can say that will help you get the most out of people that are listening, or what's one thing that you'd want to make sure everybody who's listening can do to become a better version of
Sure.
themselves, or hire
Yeah.
you as a coach, or
You got it.
what's the call to action for you?
Sure. So you can find me. I'm mostly on social media on Instagram. It's going to be at Another Angle Consulting or David McKee 84. I've written a book. It's called Navigate the Noise: Mastering Your Mindset in Today's Social Media Age. It will be coming out later this year. And I wanted to bring that up because one of the question you just asked, and then kind of going back to some of the things you were talking about before, of um, being able to get into your thoughts. Our thoughts are powerful. And what you were thinking before you learn the self-love of what people wouldn't like about you, and like those, like we all have insecurity, everybody.
Yep.
And I've worked with billionaires who are models, and it's just kind of like in that kind of realm of the world, and it's like they're miserable. It doesn't mean like the looks, the money, it doesn't have that lasting impact of loving yourself and really getting to that. Not to say you can't have that with the love, but most people you find, especially what I found in the music industry, are just really downtrodden. So I wanted to write this book to try to target from seventh grade on up. I think someone my age can get a lot out of it, but a sixth to seventh grader should be able to understand it to an extent. And it's just a very positive walkthrough of what our thoughts do and how we can really, whether it's through journaling or diagnosing when you think of something negative. I read this book called The Changed Mind by David Bayer a couple years ago. And essentially, it created this matrix of decision making of if you are starting to think, if you're stressed out, worried about something, something hits your email and it's stressing you out and you don't know what to do. It's literally walk through, okay, how would I react to this if I was calm? And it's
Mhm.
try to strip away the emotion. It's the hardest thing. It's I always use the example of water. Of if you look at a glass of water like you got here, it's water. But if you boil it in a pan, it will start to boil. Like you see the bubbles rising, going through and everything. And where prior to the heating of the water, you could see your reflection in a stainless steel pot. But once that water's boiling, you can't see the reflection anymore. It's in a different state. And when we're angry, we're in a different state. And I've a big game changer for me that really it opened up my eyes in so many things. I had the same, very much a lot of the same insecurities you were talking about, and I didn't know how to get things to the next level. And like I always thought I would be a failure. Um, it was being able to use that and really just jump into another realm of what is possible. I found out that so many more people thought like me and had these same type of things. That all these negative things I thought about myself, I genuinely asked a friend because at one point I'm like, hey, like I always have this sinking suspicion you feel this when I say this. Is that true? And actually like literally like digging into all those things of like say that like the people we care about like say I've gone to see that if someone feels uncomfortable talking about something, I'll pull them aside. I love you no matter what. What's going on? And it's so hard to bear any of what goes on today by yourself. And we've become an isolated society with social media, in my opinion. And having that isolation, it is only going to really make it an echo chamber of those negative internal thoughts. So I really wanted to write this book to be able to fix that mentality and go from where there is isolation, find ways to open up and connect more.
Awesome. So that's Navigating the Noise by
Yep.
David McKee,
Yes,
coming
sir.
out later in 2025.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on the show, David. This has been the Vision with Execution show.